Hello, good morning. Welcome to your Monday morning coffee chat, which is nice and early this morning because it's sunny and beautiful. I'm finishing my coffee and I also have my smoothie. So anyways, I wanted to share with you guys quick today. I went to a little pelvic floor workshop yesterday, which was it was just nice to go meet some other women, get out of the house, and just nice to know that this is becoming more widespread and that it's becoming more talked about. So I went to a CrossFit place around me, and that's where, so it was a lot of women that do CrossFit, and I just thought that was awesome because it wasn't so much like a pregnant population, it was like an athlete population, but it's still very important. So, and last week I actually posted my newest blog all about pelvic floor health. So I wanted to share a little bit about that, pelvic floor during pregnancy and postpartum, what your pelvic floor is and why it's important, because it's part of our bodies that really is not talked about much. And I've mentioned this several times before. I just have to check on my daughter. Rosa, hey, what are you doing? So anyways, your pelvic floor is that muscle is right here underneath. It's the muscle that is right here that supports your vagina, your anus, your bladder, your uterus, all of those things, right? So it's, if you make like a triangle and pop it right there, that's your pelvic floor. And it's very intricate and deep. It's 3 layers deep. Yeah, I'm sorry. 3rd trimester, can't breathe. And I think it's a highly mistaken muscle because it's one that you can't see, right? And that's what they mentioned yesterday, the physical therapist. She's like, it's just not one that you can visually see. So it's kind of just brushed off. And it's so true. However, during pregnancy and your postpartum period, that muscle is highly affected. And it's very important that women understand how to strengthen it, what the uses of it are, and especially after postpartum, again, how to rehabilitate it. The really important part about your pelvic floor is that it is part of your core unit. So you have, and you all know I love to talk about the core and its support. So you have, so this is your muscle core, okay, your core unit. You have your outermost layer of your rectus abdominis, which are like those 6-pack muscles. Then you have your internal and your external obliques. And then your deepest core muscle is called your transverse abdominis, which I talk about a lot. I have information on my blog about it. That transverse wraps from your multifidus, which is the muscle that runs down your spine, all the way around, okay? But it goes so deep, it connects to your pelvic floor. So the transverse is connected to your pelvic floor, which wraps all the way around, and then all those outer muscles are attached via tissue and fascia on top. They're like layers, right? So all these things are layers, but it all needs to work together in unison with your breath in order for it all to work properly. So I think that is the big missing component today, is understanding that, okay, people tell me to do Kegels, right? But doing a Kegel is not the end all thing. You have to do it in unison with strengthening your entire core, in unison with your breath. Otherwise, you're missing all of those internal pieces of the pressure on your core unit. So especially during pregnancy, as your belly is expanding, like mine, I don't know, Rosa, I don't know how it's going to get any bigger, but anyways, as it's expanding, it's expanding, right? So that weight is pushing down, because you have to remember you have your pelvis bone here, and so your pelvic floor is there, but all of those things are attached to your pelvic floor. So not attached, but supported. So your pelvic floor muscle supports, like I said, your vagina, your anus, your bladder, your uterus. They're all kind of stacked up So what happens during pregnancy is you have your pelvis bone, you have your uterus or your bladder, and then your uterus sits on top. So as you know, during pregnancy, you have to pee all the time because your uterus is growing. So it's growing over the bladder, which again is going to put all that pressure onto your pelvic floor, onto your pelvis, onto your pelvic floor. So that's a lot of times why pregnant women, they sneeze, like they pee if they sneeze, or if they're coughing, because there's just so much pressure there. And if you don't know how to control that intra-abdominal pressure of your core unit, including your pelvic floor, it's just, there's no place for that pressure to go. So it's just gonna, your pee's just gonna come out. So I think it's just really important to understand all that. And I go into greater detail on my blog about that, so make sure you check that out. So I guess what I really wanted to share was, your pelvic floor is important during pregnancy and postpartum because not only is it during pregnancy all the extra weight is getting pushed upon it, but also those muscles around your vagina and your anus and like your perineum have to stretch in order for the baby to pass through. So a lot of times, if you have like a hypertonic, a tight pelvic floor, or it's too lax, what happens, especially after you give birth, is that these muscles have all stretched out now. And if you're not aware of how to connect them or to breathe properly, they're just kind of sitting there. If they're too tight, you might have a lot of tearing happen. And then you have scar tissue, which is like a struggle of its own to heal if you're not aware of it. Because a lot of times, I know with my first, I had tearing and the doctor was just like, it's not a big deal. It happens. I stitched it up. You'll be good to go. And I was like, okay. But that was the only information I was given. It was never like, if you experience pain or this or that, you know, make sure you reach out. But it was nothing. It was just, that's what it is. Here you go. Because a lot of times women have sensation issues after because of that scar tissue. So, and then if it's too lax and it stretches too much, you have like an especially women that have like twins or triplets, it's very stretched out. If you're not, exercising it properly, it's not going to go back. So you have to think all of those organs that the pelvic floor is supporting, if it's stretched out, your poop, your pee, your bladder, all of those, you might experience leaking urine. You might experience like you can't hold farts in, or you always have trouble, you have to, when you have to poop and stuff, like you can't hold it, those kinds of things. Or you might experience a lot of pressure and pain down there because you have like a prolapse. So like your bladder or your uterus is kind of coming through because that support is not there. So it's really important during that postpartum period, to rehabilitate it, to just strengthen those muscles back up, which a lot of times your core needs that too, your deepest core unit, which a lot of women suffer from what they call like the post-baby pooch. So that's just because your muscles have been so stretched out, and because you have those 4 layers that are overlapping, if they're stretching out, things are going to bulge out through, right? And just because there's no tension there anymore, it's all become so lax. So I just think that's really important to share. And if you are pregnant or postpartum, please reach out to your OB and ask them about a pelvic floor therapist, because they do exist. And it's one of those things that's not discussed about. I think I'm working with my OB right now, and the doctors in my area, that at that 6-week appointment, go see a physical therapist, a pelvic floor physical therapist. So you can bring those issues up if you don't feel comfortable talking to your OB, because the OBs are more like the medical piece. So anyways, I'm trying to change that. So I'm just here sharing that information with you. I have so much more information up on my blog. I have my free course that supports your breathing and explains to you how to breathe properly, so you can start using your core unit, that pelvic floor as a whole. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you have a great Monday, and I'll see you later. Peace.